Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everybody.
Shalom.
I agree. I think it is very fitting that we have so much sunshine after a few days of rain here where I am. It makes total sense to me that, of course, while we gather for Simchat Shabbat with this community, that the sun would come out and grace us with its light and presence. Um, so, I would like for us to just take a second and actually maybe not look at our screens just for one moment. Find a place that any place in your area that's proximate to you, and just take a second to get into that space. Um, I know that Zoom has been at least a large part of many people's lives, and just connect with not Zoom right now as we try and transcend that during this Shabbat. So just a few more seconds of that. And if you find yourself during the service where you want to move your eyes away from the screen so that you can maybe connect in a way that's different, we encourage you to do that and just listen to the music and feel it and participate, maybe not with your eyes, but more with your ears, and give your heart what it needs. We continue on page 184 in your Siddur if you have it, or on the screen, of course, with this lovely, lovely, gorgeous prayer service that Annie has so benevolently devoted her time to making for us. I encourage you to read with me. Yes, I see Rabbi Kroloff. You're clapping. Any claps for Annie? That would be um, quite appropriate as she has just created this beauty for us. So, 184. Each of us enters the sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day, to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune. We rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow. Disappointments weigh heavily on them. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie on a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered. Ideals are betrayed and mocked, answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we too are searching restore our hope and renew our faith.
Moda ani lefanecha, melechai v'kayam. Moda ani lefanecha, melechai v'kayam. Shehechezarta binishmati, Bechemla. Rabba, Rabba, Emunatecha, Bode ani lefanecha, Melechai v'kayam, Bode ani lefanecha, Melechai v'kayam. Zata binishmati Bechemla Rabba Rabba Emunatecha. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov Yaakov Matovu ohalecha Mishkenotecha Yisrael Matovu ohalecha Yaakov Yaakov Matovu ohalecha Mishkenotecha Yisrael Va'ani berov kastecha avo veitecha shtach avecha kodshecha ve'yiratecha matovu ohalecha Yaakov Yaakov matovu ohalecha mishkenotecha Yisrael Adonai ahavti me'on beitecha Umkom mishkan kevodecha Va'ani ashtachavelecha Evracha livnei Adonai osi Matovu ohalecha Yaakov Yaakov Matovu ohalecha Mishkenotecha Yisrael Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chashtecha Aneni be'emet ishecha Matovu ohalecha Yaakov Yaakov Matovu ohalecha Mishkenotecha Yisrael Matovu ohalecha Yaakov Yaakov Matovu ohalecha Mishkenotecha Yisrael
We continue on page 194. Please join me in reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatzar et ha'adam bechokma uvra bo nekavim nekavim halulim halulim galui v'yadua lifnei kisei kevodecha she'im yipateach echad mehem o yisatem echad mehem Efshar lehitkayem v'la'amod lefanecha Baruch atah Adonai Rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah la'asok b'divrei Torah la'asok b'divrei Torah la'asok b'divrei Torah לעסוק בדברי תורה.
Sharon, would you actually like to read the prayer that's on the screen right now? It is on page 205 at the top.
Just had to make the text bigger. Sorry. We seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and in the study of Torah. And your search for us, you find us in the bending of the knee, in the rigor of study, in the honesty of commerce, through a good heart, through decency, in respect, true fellowship, companionship, and love, through truth and peace, in the no that is really no, and the yes that is really yes. Baruch atah Adonai Lamed Torah La'amo Yisrael.
Thank you. אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, ואלו הם. אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, ואלו הם. כיבוד אביים וגמילות חסדים והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, ואלו הם. והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והכנסת כלה ולוויית האמת, ועיון תפילה, ועיון תפילה, ואהבת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם, 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 ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, ואלו הם.
Steve Natko, would you read this for us?
Why, sure. Prayer gives us the guidance we need. It opens the mind to the illumination of God. The prophets made their whole life an act of prayer, so they received the inspiration of God. Our humbler minds, standing much below the heights in which they stood, receiving for the most part only a reflected illumination, may now and then, by climbing a little higher, catch a glimpse of the direct light. Through prayer, we can receive the guidance of God to strengthen our hold on truth, goodness, righteousness, and purity, which are the laws for humanity emanating from the nature of God.
Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch oseh v'reishit, Baruch Omer ve'oseh, Baruch gozer u'mkayim, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch merachem al habriot, Baruch meshalem sachar tov l'reav, Baruch chai le'ad, ve'kayam la'netzach, Baruch Hodeh umatzil, Baruch Shemo, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai, Yai lai 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 lai. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrachirutei v'al mikmakutei, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon, U'v'chayed kol beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, U'vizman kariv, V'imeru, Amen. Yehesh me Rabba mevarach, le'ala molal me'al maya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal, shemei d'kudisha b'richu, le'lan min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'imeru, Amen. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Vaed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Vaed. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Hu et Adonai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Hameir le'aretz ve'ladarim alecha, berachamim uvtovo mechadesh, bechol yom tamid maaseh Bereshit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai יוצר המאורות. Creator of all things, ruler of Israel, we are your people and you are our God. Teach us to follow, obey your commandments. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Creator of all things, ruler of Israel, we are your people and you are our God. Teach us to follow, obey your commandments. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dirpa bavam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam laot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot beinenecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, Daber el bnei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem, v'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei vigdehem ledorotam, v'natenu al tzitzit hakanaf, betil techelet, v'haya lachem, letzitzit, Uritem oto, uzkartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, v'asitem otam, v'lo taturu, acharei levavchem, ve'acharei enechem, asher atem zonim achareihem. Leman tizkaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, V'tem kedushim l'Elohechem, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, L'hiyot lachem l'Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet.
We continue in your Siddur on page 239 responsively. I think right now, actually, if we can, I would like to just see how it would be to unmute ourselves so that we can respond in a cacophonous beauty responsively so that we can feel each other's presence a little more.
That would be gorgeous chaos. Be wonderful.
So, yeah, let's give it a go. The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love
and
exalt in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation
not lift up a sword against nation, nor learn war anymore.
Shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart.
The stranger
that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God.
We know that the
Know that the
Eternal
Eternal
One
One
defends
defends
the
the
poor
poor
and
and
upholds the
upholds
needy.
the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Do you want your picture on?
Dana and Oaks.
Told you.
Okay, Your Honor, Your Honor. Everybody has to mute themselves again. Ba'elim Adonai Adonai mi kamocha nedar bakodesh lora tehilot oseh felem shira chadesha shebechu geulim Lishimcha al svat hayam michamocha ba'elim Adonai Adonai mikamocha nedar bakodesh lora tehilot oseh Yachad kulam hodu ve'imlechu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed michamocha ba'elim Adonai Adonai mikamocha nedar bakodesh lora tehilot oseh felem yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai dai yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 Sur Yisrael kuma be'ezrat Yisrael ufedechu necha Yehuda v'Yisrael Go aleinu Adonai tzivot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael Sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha Adonai open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise Yada dai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chaste Avot Ve'imahot, Umevig Ula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח, מוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. מקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו במרום, כך כתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה על זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג, המקדשי שבי כולם יספו ויתענגו מטובך. והשבי רצית בו וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג, המקדשי שבי, כולם יספו ויתענגו מטובך, והשבי רצית בו וקידשתו חמדת ימים, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית, זכר למעשה בראשית.
We continue on page 255, and in the same fashion, if you would like to unmute yourself so we can read this together, this prayer is said in the we as a community, so we can listen to that beautiful cacophony again. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess, and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yira na'avod. Page 258.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים. 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 Aleinu, le'alko Yisrael amecha, Baruchenu Yotzreinu, kulanu kechad be'or panecha. Sim shalom, tova u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Sim shalom, tova u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Or panecha natat lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat Chaim, Ahavat Chesed, Zedal Bracha, Verachamim v'chaim v'shalom. Sim shalom, tova u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Sim shalom, tova u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. טוב בעיניך, לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים.
I invite you now to pray from the meditations of your own heart, and you can use the prayer book to inspire the prayers that land on you today, that resonate with you today. I do want to invoke just a small teaching before we do this from a dear mentor of mine, Rabbi Mira Rivera, and also from Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who has just passed, to approach prayer. We said this last night a little in our services, to approach prayer as little sips of water that might nourish a parched heart. And one thing that has been helpful for me is just to focus on a few words today. Just now, I was focusing on Sim Shalom and how beautiful those two words just are. And I would say that also, I know my dad. I don't know if my dad is here. I know dad. I'm saying a lot, just putting that out there. But because that's what he would be saying to me. But maybe just take two words or yismahu or just something that falls on you in this moment right now. And I invite you, if you wish, to just hold those two words, that one word, in your heart as you pray.
Oh, say shalom bimroma. Oh, ya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru. Amen. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Oh, ya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru. Oh, say shalom Roma. Oh, ya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru. עשרה שיושבים ועוסקים בתורה שכינה שרויה שרויה ביניהם עשרה שיושבים ועוסקים בתורה שכינה שרויה שרויה ביניהם
And before we welcome Richard Kellner to read our Torah portion from Chayei Sarah in Genesis 23, 1 through 6, I would like to open the floor for any simchas that we're celebrating from this past week or looking into next week, so that we can lift each other in happiness and lift each other in celebration.
Well, my oldest granddaughter is turning 16 this week.
Oldest granddaughter is turning 16. Who said that?
Richard Kellner.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi,
Rabbi.
Hi. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I have to flip through the screen, so I didn't see you. Okay, so that's a big birthday. 16.
Stay off the roads.
Actually, that's
Hi,
what
Rabbi.
I'm driving, so I'll let you know too when I to stay off the road. Anyone else would like to share a simcha?
Yes.
Yes, hi, Rabbi. It's Mark Schumann. I wanted to share that my son Matthew, after graduating from Lafayette this year, will be working. He got a job, yay, working as a manager for Amazon in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we're very happy to see him get that opportunity and help him get started.
Mazel tov.
Okay, so not in the last week, but since the last Simchat Shabbat service, our grandson was bar mitzvahed in Maryland.
Oh,
Mazel
Mazel tov.
Thank you. Yeah, all by Zoom.
And if I can add, this Friday night, I'm in part of the adult bat mitzvah group. So come share. I will hope to see you all there.
oh, amazing.
Mazel tov to you.
Thank you.
And my grandson just had his 17th birthday. That's my first grandson, so I'm not as old as you might think. And my son is about to have another birthday. We won't discuss his age. And I want also to be very grateful for the continued existence of democracy in this country.
Thank you for sharing that.
Becky, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I have the good news, bad news, Simcha.
Okay.
So good news, bad news. I'll do the bad news first, which is I got laid off on Tuesday. We ripped a whole bunch of people, which is bad news because now I don't have a job. But since I don't have a job, I don't have to stay in Georgia, which means I can come home. And that's amazing. So that's my good news. So I will be back in January.
Why was she down there for a
For a
job?
job.
Yeah. I
That's great, Sharon. That's great, Sharon. We're going to put you in the rotation to serve as sisterhood president once again in, I don't know, a year or two. That's a condition.
that was, yeah.
Sharon, we've missed you very much. It's not the reason, delighted you're coming back. It's not the reason I want you to come back, but I'm delighted.
I had been struggling to figure out when we were going to need to go back to the office because we haven't been in the office for 8 months. And I'm like, when they tell me when I have to go back, then I'll decide what I'm doing because I couldn't spend another summer down here. And they made the decision really easy for me. So gonna pack up and move and go figure out my next steps in life, and I get to come home, and that's.
I grew up there.
Yeah, there's
Sharon, what's an office? Could you explain that concept to me? I'm not familiar.
I know. So yeah, and Chuck, there's things about Atlanta that are wonderful, but it's just not home.
I understand. Well, we welcome you back home.
So that's my.
Can't wait, Sharon, to hug you.
Well, I can't wait till we can. I'm just so hopeful, that this has been wonderful, but when we can all be together, it's going to be even more wonderful for all of us.
Yeah, my personal dream is that by the time we hit warm spring weather, end of May, or at least the 2 Simchat Shabbats in June, that it's nice outside and we can do something outdoors in the tent at the temple. And it's great seeing everybody, but there's nothing like 3 dimensions and hearing people clap. It's really funny when I'm singing and people are doing this and I don't hear anything, but clap anyway. It's important.
And Rick,
Yeah.
I look forward to our creating a circle with our arms on each other's shoulders and swaying back and forth.
Oh
And
my goodness.
stitches from each other. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah, we may never let go.
And hopefully the traveler going to Spain will be back by then too.
Yeah, that is my Simchat. I will be hopefully shortly reunited with my husband after a year of being apart from this pandemic.
That's crazy.
So I look forward to many Shabbats, at least for the near future, at midnight with all of you while I'm in Spain and you're in New Jersey. But I'm not, I told Rabbi Prosnit he might one day want to let me go, but I'm not letting Temple Emanu-El go. So I thanks for outing me, Sharon. No, but it's
Wait, I didn't mention your name. I didn't mention any names.
No, but I too cannot wait until we are able to embrace each other with the distinct love and appreciation we have in the Simchat Shabbat community. And I cannot think of any better way to frame, Richard, your Torah reading in so much happiness and joy. And we welcome you to read Torah.
Okay, this is not a happy Torah reading. This is the burial of Sarah, the acquiring of the land, the dealings that go on. It's Chaye Sarah. Okay. Amen. Vayu Haye Sarah Me'ah Shana Vaisarim Shana Vashevet Shanim Shaneh Haye Sarah Vayatamut Sarah Bikiriat Arba'a Ek Hevron Ba'eretz Canaan Vayavot Avraham Lispot L'Sarah Balifta'a Vayakum Avraham Me'ah Panei Meta Vaydeber El Bnei Chet Lemor Gerva Toshav Anochim Imachem Tenu Le'i Akusa Keset Imechem Ve'ekbara Meti Milfanei Vayanu V'nei Chet Et Avraham Limor Lo Shema'enu Adoni Nefesh Elohim Atah b'tokenu Ba'emetz Kerah Kavorenu Kavor Et Meteche Ish Mimenu Et Kerah Lo Yichlech Memcha Mikvor Meftecha. That's it.
Yasher koach.
Amen. Yasher Koach. Thank you.
Yeshkoach.
Ashikoa. And Rabbi, I would note there are still many great faith chapters to cantor with Torah coming up in the near and not so near future. So if anyone is interested, please contact me at gmail.com. Let me know that you're interested. That's great. And it's a great experience. I hope everyone gets an opportunity.
Mark, I'm just going to reiterate that you're a little choppy in there. So I believe Mark was saying that um, that there are plenty of Torah options and opportunities for chanting. And if you would like to work with clergy to practice your Torah portion, you're more than welcome to. I would love to speak about Torah with anybody. Um, and we have plenty of options for the year to hear your beautiful voices. Grace us with your Torah and your Torah teachings. Um,
Indeed. Thank you, Rabbi.
and now I'm going to share screen. If that's okay, Annie, our um, invisible, invisible magic worker. Great for our Torah study. And I will also just copy this link and put it in the chat in case you would like to pull this up. And just so you do know, everyone will have access to this link. I'm wondering, here we go. Everyone will have access to this link, and um, I will actually be putting a different link to a different document. And what will happen on that different document actually will be just an idea, a think tank that anyone can add ideas onto for Simchat Shabbat. So if you would like to steer us in a specific direction with Torah study, I would love to know what would make your Simchat Shabbat as we do this, continue to do this virtually, feel like it is truly a warm embrace as though we are together and never letting go, as Rick said. And so today we're dedicating our Torah study to Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who passed away last Shabbat. And actually, Richard, you chanted this verse from Genesis 23:4, which Abraham says when he is trying to bury his wife Sarah. And you're right, the Parsha actually begins mm, in a sad in a sad way because we face the death of Sarah, one of our matriarchs, our first Jewish matriarch. And a recurring motif in this Torah portion is actually the inclusion and the perspective and the treatment of the stranger. I'm going to ask um, if you're not on mute, if you can mute yourself. Uh, thank you. And there are many different ways that we can look at this just one verse. And I I wanted to take us through time through Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs' life, because he had mentioned that in reading about him that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a huge influence on the way that he viewed and read and interpreted Torah and understood Judaism. And he wrote this wonderful book called The Dignity of Difference, which was actually a book aimed towards finding solutions to eradicating violence amongst different religious groups. And he presents a very, very different understanding of how we can look at God and the stranger. And I want to take us through this. So I'm just going to read the bolded parts. And of course, this is available to you always if you would like to study more. But The Lubavitcher Rebbe said, "The Jew is a resident in the world, for Torah instructs him not to escape the physical reality, but to inhabit and elevate it." So, my question here is, what kind of stranger is the Lubavitcher Rebbe talking about? What kind of stranger? Are we talking about literally a physical stranger like Eliezer is when he comes to Rebecca at the well? Or is this something else? Oh, this is meant to be a conversation. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, you may. All are welcome, and challenge is more than welcome as well. Disagreement, learning from each other in any way. But what do you see here? I can also make this bigger. And he goes on to say, at the same time, the Jew finds himself a stranger in the material world, and his true home is a higher, loftier place, the world of spirit and holiness and godliness, from which his soul has been exiled, and it yearns to return. So in this Torah portion, a brief overview, we have the death of Sarah, and then we have the introduction of Rebecca, the next matriarch in our story, who we will focus on. And Rebecca greets Eliezer, the servant of Isaac, who goes to really just find a wife for Isaac. She greets him in a way that's seen as very generous and hospitable. Does anybody remember how she greets him and his camels?
An abundance of water.
An abundance of water. Richard, did you study this week, or yes, with an abundance of water.
My life,
And
a lifelong teacher.
oh, that's lovely. So yes, with an abundance of water, and that is seen actually. Robert Alter, who has written about this extensively, talks about how Rebecca how that's very rare, that not only does she treat Eliezer with water, but she goes back and forth to feed his camels water, and to think about how actually physically taxing that is, because drawing water from the well and then running to feed his various camels, to nourish them as well, to look beyond not just the person standing in front of her, but also just the lives, the living that is standing among her, and nourishing those lives as well. What an incredible thing for Rebecca to do. I promise I'm not saying this because she's my namesake, but I mean, that is just what a feat of generosity, and a
Isn't
welcoming.
isn't that the right thing to do though? I mean, I mean, you're in a desert. Just because they're camels, they still need water. I mean, that's the right thing to do, right? I mean,
But
should
she
we be
didn't make
so
the-
surprised, or
But,
I don't
but
know.
she didn't make camel riders get the water. She brought it to them.
Well, so that's a great question. I mean, it seems maybe very obvious that we would do that, but let's place ourselves in the context of where Rebecca is right now, and where identity is in this moment as well. So I would assume that if we saw someone coming towards us, even with a tradition of hospitality, if we were not stranded, but living in the desert, we're not automatically inclined to welcome this presence because we're not sure if it's dangerous or not. And so there's a tremendous amount of trust, actually, or faith that maybe Rebecca is exhibiting, because she does approach Eliezer. I mean, yes, Eliezer's not traveling alone, right? Like, Eliezer's traveling with many things with him, including other people, servants as well. And so to welcome in that way, and to so expeditiously and physically facilitate getting that water, which is also a symbol in itself for life, to this new group of people, a group of strangers, men too, with the power dynamic of her being a woman and them being men, bringing that and still having trust to face them with such generosity. It's interesting, I think, that, Brett, you did say, like, well, why doesn't that just make sense? But do you think that if we were to apply this paradigm to a modern world, is that what we're doing all the time?
Can I say something? This is Paula. I'm Gail's sister.
Hi,
And when I think of a stranger, I think also of, we're all around people that are very similar to us. And to me, a stranger is someone who's really diametrically different. And how much do we invite that into our lives too, in order to hear what they have to say, to really welcome them. And Rebecca didn't know who that was really, and she instantly, and gave that welcome. And you're right, today, if I saw someone on the street that might not be dressed the same way I am, or, look the same way I do, I might be very hesitant to welcome that stranger. And you have to use wisdom, God's wisdom, but still, it's an interesting thought. It's not just a stranger from another country or another, that sort of thing. We have strangers among us all the time.
So I guess kind of thinking about that, I mean, is a stranger one, if you look here, a stranger versus a resident, that might just mean that it's someone is a stranger someone you don't know, or someone that is different from you? And are those two kind of a different thing? I mean, maybe we're all the same, and it's just the stranger is those that we haven't met, and not to think about that, to celebrate people's differences and kind of, I don't know.
Brett, you've touched on a very important concept, the difference between ger and ger toshav. Ger is a stranger. Ger toshav is a resident stranger, a stranger who lives among you. And it's ger toshav that's mentioned in the portion that Richard just chanted. And I don't know, Becky, whether you want to move in this direction, but the concept of ger toshav in modern times has taken on a great deal of significance in discussion in Jewish circles, because we, for example, give you just one example of that. We talk about who is a Jew, and there are many among us who are not Jewish technically, but who are living a Jewish life, living as Jews. Sometimes in interfaith marriages, sometimes in other settings, and is the idea of ger toshav, which has been a text provided. It's a text provided a text for outreach and for bringing in the stranger who lives among us. It's an interesting concept, and from a legal point of view, yes, Madam Lawyer, Today here, dreamers, for example, as opposed to somebody who's here on a 3-month visa. The whole idea of Ger Toshav is worthy of at least 2 or 3 hours, right, Becky? Or 2 or 3 days.
Well, I mean, I actually thank you for illuminating that for us, Rabbi Kroloff. I mean, I do think what you said actually reminded me of my mother, because she is Christian and she's very religious, and also she's a leader within her Christian community. I almost will say that maybe like our family's Christian community, because I grew up in an interfaith home. And in one of my classes, actually, we had to answer an essay question. So this is a little preview of what we're learning in seminary right now. Our essay question was, if they're in a hypothetical situation, if a a student is becoming a bat mitzvah and one of her parents is not Jewish and the other parent is Jewish, can the non-Jewish parent come up and do an Aliyah blessing? And my mother, who is the most supportive of my Jewish journey in becoming a rabbi, we have Havruta together. She will drive me to any Jewish event, no matter what, and has done so since I was a little kid, going to BBYO. The idea that she was not, in some way, to me, because she was providing a Jewish life for me, this idea that she would not be able to say the Aliyah and bless my Torah, it was actually very, very, it was so foreign to me, because she was cultivating my Jewish life for me as well. And I think that the issue of Ger in a contemporary lens, unfortunately, also in the very political manifestations that it has, not just our countries, but countries around the world that have to decide what borders mean to really understand and reaffirm what national and ethnic identities. Makes this a very complicated, but I think worthwhile question for us to think about, because some midrash say that the reason Rebecca was so welcoming to Eliezer was because she had an incredible sense of empathy, because she knew that eventually she went to go marry Isaac, that she would be a stranger to that land. And she had the foreshadowing wisdom of saying, this could be me. I don't care who the stranger is, but are we really that different? Because eventually she does become a stranger. I mean, can we just talk about for a second maybe what she did and how much courage she must have had to meet a surrogate for her husband and say, yes, I will marry this man who you are representing and travel with you and leave my family because I have an incredible faith that this will work. And then on top of it, to also know that maybe in a form of radical empathy, maybe that's what she was doing before we had the term radical empathy, that she just knew she would one day, like all of us, become a stranger in some way. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he talks about this mostly like in a spiritual way, like sometimes how we find ourselves strangers as Jews because we live in a material world, and that is not what our home might be. And the reason why I thought that this was just so incredible too was because I think Rabbi Jonathan Sachs envisions stranger in a way that will help us really see the stranger that lives, the stranger of us that lives in the other. Um, so I just want to, I mean, yes, Madam Lawyer, I really, really, and Rabbi Kroloff, thank you, and everybody who's contributed, thank you. That is, that's all very important to think about, this idea, different statuses of stranger, because the ger also in the Bible, the resident stranger has actually certain rights to live within proximity to different groups of Jews. So, and they're given rights by Jewish communities. Like that, there are different statuses of the stranger that are just very important to note. But I do wonder if that's, I mean, I'm posing this question to you. I'm wondering if that the resident stranger is something, this notion is actually something that's helpful for us as we look at Torah and reinterpret what it might mean in this way, or if it's not helpful to us. And I think one thing that Rabbi Sachs says is, and I'm just going to read this from, I'll highlight it here. So he says, it seems that today, this is in an interview he had with Krista Tippett, it seems to me that one of the things that we most fear is the stranger. And at most times in human history, most people have lived among those who are mostly pretty much the same as them. And today, certainly in Europe and even in America, you're able now to walk down the street and you'll encounter in 10 minutes more anthropological diversity than an 18th century traveler would have encountered in a lifetime. And so what emerges is this question of diversity. And you go back and you read the Bible and something hits you, which is, we're very familiar with the two great commands of love in the Bible. So love God with all your heart and your soul and your might. Love your neighbor as yourself. So we're bringing in neighbor also, which might make things a little more sticky. But one command reiterated more than any other in the Mosaic box, 36 times, said the rabbis, is love the stranger, for you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. Or to put it in a contemporary way, love the stranger because to him you're also a stranger. The sense that we are enlarged by the people who are different from us, that we are not threatened by them, that needs cultivating, and it can be cultivated. It would lead us to see the 21st century as full of blessing and not of fear. He goes on to say that don't think, and I'm just going to read from here, don't think that God is as simple as you are. He's in places you would never expect him to be. And you know, we lose a little bit in the English translation because when Moses at the burning bush says to God, "Who are you?" God says to him in 3 words, Haya, Sher Haya. And those words translated into English are, I am that which I am. But in Hebrew, it means I will be who or how or where I will be. That's just right here. Meaning, don't think you can predict me. I am a God who is going to surprise you. And one of the ways God surprises us is by letting a Jew or a Christian discover the trace of God's presence in a Buddhist monk or a Sikh tradition of hospitality or the graciousness of Hindu life. Don't think that we can confine God into our categories. God is bigger than religion. And so I think that in the aftermath of a very tense political time that we've had in the United States and looking at numbers that actually statistics that might really clarify a feeling of being strangers from one another in the way that we fall politically. This actually was Bashert when I came across it, especially in the time that passed last week, because it does show us that there is something to be said that God is bigger than religion, and perhaps we just need to keep in mind, as we might feel strangers from each other, that really I'm the stranger to you, you're the stranger to me, and at a very basic form of humanity on that level, we connect by being strangers always.
So just to share, um, I realized this as I read that last line, God is bigger than religion. So this might count as sharing too much information, but this very morning in the shower, for whatever reason, the music that popped into my head was Jethro Tull and the line that says, "He's not the kind you have to wind up on Sundays," obviously from a Christian perspective. And a lot of that album actually focuses a lot on religion, formalized religion. And so this was destined to be a match. I started preparing for your Torah study in the shower this morning by hearing Jethro Tull in my head.
It's all Bashir. It's all Bashir. Does anybody want the last word before we continue our services, or does any lingering thoughts that could leave us thinking more as we head into this wonderful week of sunshine and for me at least blowing a lot of leaves. Um,
Something to think about for the rest of the day, and that is ways in which each of us finds herself or himself to be a stranger. What are the times? What are the settings? And what do we do about that? And what do others do about that?
Thank you, Rabbi Prolog. Ah, this is wonderful. Okay. um, so I'm going to stop share, and just a reminder, I'm going to post the link to this in the chat. And if you would like to just be a part of, if you would like to receive the Torah source sheets from this year or see them beforehand, I'm creating a pan list to send them out to some regulars for Simchat Shabbat, because I know that has been a request amongst some of you. No pressure at all, and thank you for this wonderful study. We will now continue with our prayer for healing. As always, a prayer for the healthcare workers and fruit sellers by Ayelet Cohen. May the descendants of our ancestors band together to support those who put themselves at risk to care for the sick, physicians and nurses and orderlies, lab workers and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists, grocery store clerks and fruit sellers who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day to tend to those who have committed to heal, to feed, and sustain our communities. Bless them in their coming home and in their going out. Calm their fears, sustain them. May we band together in these difficult days to support them, sustain their strength, and maintain their hope. We also pray in our community for those who are in need of healing. I invite you to also add anybody who you're thinking of in this chat, and hold these names in your heart. Zalman Ben Dina, Gabby Kraft Buckman, Susan Klein, Summer Curter, Susan Robb, Linda Rubino, Arlene Furman, Neil Silverman, Linda Fleischer, Larry Maslow, Mason Rockmore, Martin Ostroff, Don Hirsch, Pearl Weitzman, Aaron Taylor, Perry Shellman, Sharon Nace, Rabbi Rob Nosenchuk, Emily Tucker, Andy Secutris Diorio, Sharon Zidney, Joyce Kagan, Gloria Austerer, Ina Botvelvel Dryman, Scott Goldberg, Rena Goslin, Emil Vogel, Kathy Murphy, Betsy Miller, Mark Goldstein, Aviva Khana, Mark Ann Stahl, Allison Tischler, Dean Rossi, Stephen Brundage, Betty Moore, Madison Mosher, Robin Fisher Solis, Phyllis Brown, Shmuela Hava Bat Yitzhak Basara, Shirley Rosenberg, Aaron Ben Malcha, Claude Blaise, Deb Poplowski Wilson, Phyllis Sherwin, Marie and Walter Oberwanowitz, Jen Josephs. We continue with the Misha Garach.
Sheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, l'kekedu la'lioseh breshit, shelo asanu k'goy ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, Umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'nemar Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yehiyeh Adonai echad bayom hahu yehiyeh Adonai echad bayom hahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad.
It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh to lose, a thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing to love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. Before we begin to recite the Mourner's Kaddish, I want to welcome you to put any names in the chat of those who you might be thinking of, who you're holding in your hearts and memory during this time. We recall loved ones who have died from our community in the last 30 days. David Bregman, Lee Bung Hong, Marjorie Feinberg, Bernard Weinstein, Sheldon Glickman, Dennis Rodkin, Sheldon Reich, May Cohen, Barry Rose, and we recall those who have died but have not yet been buried. Shirley Shapiro, mother of Rick Shapiro. We also remember Mildred Gatto, Richard White, a lawyer, artist, poet, and dear, dear friend of Steve Notko. Kathy Sadler, Mildred Gadol, Scott Gagere, Richard Keene, Jim Judge. And we remember the yard site of those who are in our community. Janice Bloom, Morton Bluestone, Morris Brown, Wendy Crown, Seymour Cummins, Cecile Ehrman, Shirley Essenfield, William Fine, Buddy Feldstein, Gordon Forgosh, Bert Fox, Pamela Frank, Ben Geyer, Ethel Geller, Esther Glassman, Abraham Golish, Sylvia Gottesman, Elaine B. Greenberg, Dorothy Groder, Robert G. Horner, Jessie Kaufman Jacobs, Norman Kaplan, Max Klein, David Kilbonner, Ben Kogan, Samuel Cole, Marion Landau, Elias Listman, Herman Lowenstein, Ava Markman, Sarah Miller, Murray Moskowitz, Isaac Mukamal, Rose Plisner, George Popper, Isaac Rubino, Martin Reich, Gail Robinson, Martin Rogoff, Harold Schwartz, Hortense Sedwin, Alan Sesser, Rhea Shapiro, Erwin Silberg, Rose Skolnick, Nathan Spivak, Stanley Tehel, Trudy Tripp, Nathan Trinan, Bernard Wasserman, Saul Weil, Bruce David Weissman, Martha Wilson, Max Wolkoff, Robert Zaharowitz, Sanders Zuckerman, and Private Harold D. Zweigbaum. We also think of those who have passed from this pandemic and all of those who have passed during this time of unpredictability in our world. Please rise as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. You may unmute yourself as well. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrahirati v'yumlik mahute, v'chayahon v'yomahon u'chaye zekol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'zman kavi v'yir amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mivarach l'olam almei almaya, Yifarak, Yishbak, Yifta'ar, Yitlamam, Yitnasev, Yitadar, Yitala, Yitala, Shemeda, Kudasha, Berechu, La'ela, Minkol, Birchata, Bashirhata, Tush Behata, Benehamata, Damiran Belma, Yinu, Amen. Yehe Shama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu, Ve'rakol Yisrael, Yenu, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mirnav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'rakol Yisrael, Yenu, Amen. Zichronam Lebracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Amen. You may be seated.
So I'd like to close this morning's service in a somewhat unusual way. The threefold priestly blessing, I can't think of any other circumstance where it's been used as a closing song. But as we head into the colder season, rising COVID risks that aren't done rising, it's pretty clear. It's risky out there. And so I wanted to close with this blessing that we should all keep each other safe so that by the time springtime rolls around, we're all in good shape. So this is for all of you and everybody you know and love. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha v'yishmarecha Yaher Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom shalom. May God bless you and keep you, look kindly on you, be gracious to you. May God reach out to you in tenderness and give you peace. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Actually, before we end, this is and fought for our freedom and our ability to be with here together right now. And so this was written by Alden Salavi, who writes actually most of our prayer for the Mishkan Tefillah, and he wrote this not too long ago, but I had the pleasure of listening to him talk about how he came up with this prayer and how it meant so much to him to honor those who did fight on behalf of us. If you would like to add any names to those you would like to hold in honor while we say this prayer to the chat, please do so. A Veterans Day prayer. God of compassion, God of dignity and strength, watch over our veterans in recognition of their loyal service to our nation. Bless them with wholeness and love, shelter them, heal their wounds, comfort their hearts, and grant them peace. God of justice and truth, the rock of our lives, bless our veterans, these men and women of courage and valor, with a deep and abiding understanding of our profound gratitude. Protect them and their families from loneliness and want. Grant them lives of joy and bounty. May their dedication and may their honor be remembered as a blessing from generation to generation to generation. Blessed art you, protector and redeemer, our shield and stronghold. And we hold those in honor. And Annie's dad, Myron Goodall, who served in World War II. My grandpa, Stanley Jarmolowski, who also served in World War II. Ben Levine, Charles Levine, and Captain McNulty, and anyone you are holding in your hearts right now. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.